Welcome into the Boys Collective, episode number 19, right here on 105.3 The Fan here on YouTube. My name is Kevin Gray, alongside Super Bowl winning scout and 1/4 of the G-Bag Nation, Bryan Broaddus. Bryan, good to see you. Unfortunately, not a Cowboys victory Monday after struggling on the road against the Kansas City Chiefs on Sunday afternoon.
KG, my ears are still ringing from Arrowhead. I'll tell you what, I will give you folks from Kansas City a lot of credit. You appreciate good barbecue and you are very loud. So those were two. I'll tell you what, the noise. I think the noise did play a factor. I know the Cowboys were down a lot of players, but you don't realize there's certain venues around the league that are just hard to play at. And the old Metrodome, I mean, I've been to most every stadium in the National Football League. Some of the new ones I haven't been to, but most of them. Arrowhead to me was always the one, that the old Metrodome, the King Dome in Seattle, those were just very intimidating, hard places to play. And the Kansas City crowd, to their credit, they just never gave up the noise, and their team wasn't perfect on offense, but they sure were good on defense. And flip the script on that a little bit, as we're going to talk about, the Cowboys just weren't good enough on offense, but kind of felt like they were good enough on defense. So maybe that's your silver lining in all this game.
You can find me on Twitter at Kevin Gray Sports. You can find Bryan on Twitter at Bryan Broaddus. Be sure to subscribe to 105 The Fan here on YouTube and all of our social media platforms on Twitter, Facebook, and Instagram, including on Twitter at 105 The Fan. That jumps us into our Cowboys Chiefs recap. The Dallas Cowboys go down 19-9 at Arrowhead on Sunday afternoon. Dak Prescott, 28 of 43 for 216 yards, had 2 interceptions, 0 touchdowns. Patrick Mahomes, 23 of 37 for 260 yards. He only had one interception, no touchdowns. Clyde Edwards-Helaire made his return. He had 12 carries for 63 yards and a touchdown. But if you had told me, Bryan, that this Cowboys defense would get 2 sacks from Micah Parsons, would hold the Kansas City Chiefs offense to just 3 points in the second half, and they were able to, for the most part, play well on defense, I would have told you the Cowboys would probably win that game, even on the road in Arrowhead. I think that just speaks to the struggles offensively that the Cowboys had. Now, to kind of give some context and perspective on it, Tyron Smith did not play in this game, missed the game with the high ankle sprain that he's dealing with. CeeDee Lamb went down at the end of the first half with a concussion on an interception by Travarius Ward at the end of the first half. And, of course, going into the game, Amari Cooper was missing because of COVID-19. He will also be out in the game on Thanksgiving Day against the Las Vegas Raiders. So, in essence, the Cowboys went into this game, Bryan, without their 2 starting defensive ends in Randy Gregory and DeMarcus Lawrence, without their starting left tackle, starting a new left guard, without one of their starting wide receivers to start the game, and then lose their next one in the middle of the game. It's kind of hard to overcome a lot of those different things, and it felt like at times the injuries were just simply too much to overcome, even with the amount of depth that this team has played with. Unfortunately, it did not show up in the way that it needed to on Sunday afternoon.
Yeah, you're right, KG. And there, comes a point in time, I mean, really, in talking to people over there this morning, they've really felt like that Tyron Smith was going to play in that football game. And maybe, my hope, as we talked about it on Friday with the Cowboys, I kind of felt like the Cowboys could have run the football. I didn't like the way that they tried to run the football. I don't think running at Kansas City necessarily is the best thing to do. I think you had to move them and then cut the ball. We saw what happened on the long run by Tony Pollard. He took the ball, it was misdirection. It got Kansas City going one way, and then he went the other. And I kind of felt like watching tape of him, that was the way to go. But you're right. And, once Tyron Smith was out and once we found out about Amari Cooper, I said it on Twitter yesterday morning, like at 7:15 in the morning, I don't feel good about Cowboys winning this game. And to be honest with you, with all the losses they had, there just gets to be a point in time you can play against the Jets and Jacksonville and the Houston Texans, even though they got a nice victory against Tennessee. You can play against those teams and not have everybody. You can't go to Arrowhead and have all the losses that you had and guys not playing and make it work. It's just, and now let's give the Cowboys credit on defense, because there were several times where there were turnovers, there were sacks, there was a missed field goal. In my mind, that's like a turnover. They were doing things defensively to hold Kansas City in check. The problem was offensively, you were so bad protecting, you couldn't get off bump coverage, and your quarterback just wasn't nearly accurate enough throwing the football. And then when he was accurately throwing the football, you had drops. You had guys fighting the ball yesterday. Noah Brown, by the second drop where he tried to body catch it, Noah Brown usually snatches the ball in his hands. When you see receivers having to body balls, and it was a little bit behind him, but Noah Brown's got to make that catch. Cedric Wilson, even though he had an 18-yard catch this game, he's got to make the catches he has. If you got guys banged up and not playing, somebody has to step up. And Cedric Wilson, for the most part, has stepped up. Noah Brown has stepped up. I asked for Dorrance Armstrong to have a pretty good game yesterday. What did Dorrance Armstrong do? He got another sack. See, that's the kind of stuff you have to have in order to win games. But the problem was, though, Kansas City, you didn't do a good job of blocking Chris Jones. You really didn't do a good job of blocking their front at all, because you couldn't run the ball like you needed to, and you couldn't protect your quarterback. And that crowd noise had something to do with that. One of the sack fumble was Terrence Steele never got out of his stance.
That's right.
That's from inexperience, playing left tackle, looking at the ball, not seeing the rusher, trying to find the ball, trying to find the rusher, and the next thing you know, we're off and running. So a lot of bad things happened for the Cowboys yesterday in that regard. But their defense played. Now, we had seen their defense fold in a similar situation against Denver. So again, if you're a Cowboy fan and looking for a silver lining, your defense did not fold in this game. It did not succumb to huge plays, running game. It didn't. It just, all the early damage was done. But when you were getting stops, your offense wasn't doing anything. And this is the recipe, if you want to call it the blueprint. You beat Dallas by stopping their offense. That's what you do. And then the two teams, the last 3 weeks, two AFC teams have been able to do that.
It's interesting because I felt better about the Cowboys defense after this game than I did after their game against the Tampa Bay Buccaneers at the very beginning of the season. While, it was a little bit of a high-scoring affair, you were able to keep in it with your offense. This defense, for the most part, has steadily improved throughout the season. And when you go into Arrowhead, you gave up the 16 points, in the first half, but a lot of that, you weren't able for the offense really to convert off the turnover that you were able to get late in the first half. But more importantly, you only give up 3 points in the second half. And Micah Parsons, he had 2 sacks in this game. And it's funny you talked about Chris Jones, the defensive lineman for the Kansas City Chiefs. They had moved him back into the interior. Coming into this game, the Chiefs had the second fewest sacks in the NFL at 14. They got 5 on Sunday against the Dallas Cowboys. Chris Jones had 3.5 on his own. And what was interesting, and I kept writing in my notes over and over again, I'm sure you did too, every time I just kept writing, Chris Jones whooped Zach Martin. He whooped Connor McGovern. Like, it was no respecter of any of the Dallas Cowboys offensive line on Sunday. And it felt like he got a little bit of piece of everybody on Sunday. And even Frank Clark, too, at times got home with the pass rush that he gave. So it just felt like a collective bad day on the offensive line in general. How much of that, and what did you think about Connor McGovern's performance starting at left guard alongside Terrence Steele, and what that left side of the offensive line looked like on Sunday?
I think overall, and you're right, KG, what they did with Chris Jones, and people in the post game last night were on the rail. Why don't you double him? Why don't you find what the Chiefs did? Steve Spagnuolo did the smart thing. You moved him around. It's very similar to like teams like a post game show for Kansas City was probably like, man, that Micah Parsons, why don't you double him? Why don't you, well, you move guys around so they can't be doubled. That's the thing. If a guy sits in the same spot down after down after down after down, you could find ways to slide protection to him, chip backs on him, put a tight end over there. Chiefs did a smart thing. They knew that the Cowboys were having some issues. They have a first-time first-time starter at left guard.
Mm-hmm.
Because Connor McGovern didn't make the start against Tampa Bay in week 1 at right guard for Zach Martin and played pretty well. But in this game, you had two guys that were really, it's new. Even though that Terrence Steele has played now left tackle 3 times, he's admitted it. It's not the same for him. It's a struggle for him to get over there and play. And you saw some of that stuff. You saw him getting knocked back, rocked back. You saw him laid off the ball. You saw the lack of, he fights over there, but man, it's 1,000% different with Tyron Smith over there. You could get away with having Connor McGovern starting at left guard if you have, say, Tyron Smith there. But man, the Cowboys just said, you know what? We're going to go with it. We're worried about all these penalties that Connor Williams is getting, and we're going to just take him out of the lineup. And that's what they did. And, but I just felt like the offensive line the entire offensive line just wasn't a good enough game for them. They just did not, again, for a team that doesn't rush the passer particularly well, they didn't handle the noise, and they didn't handle the physicality in which the Kansas City Chiefs played up front.
The Cowboys only ran for 82 yards in this game. They were 5 of 15 on third down. What was interesting in this game also, so of course the receivers, it felt like just cannot get any kind of separation on these corners, whether it was Ward, whether it was Snead. They played a physical brand of football that I thought a lot of the ways we could have seen the Cowboys maybe to try to do some things against the Chiefs. What did you think about how the corners for Kansas City approached the receivers for the Cowboys?
Yeah, this is what you and I talked about on Friday in the breakdown. It's like, if I'm the Cowboys, I don't give the Chiefs any free access on routes. I just don't. John Hussey, the crew of the officials yesterday, when you determined that they were not going to call any defensive holding or any pass interference or any of that stuff, the Chiefs did the smart thing. They said, you know what? You're not good enough on the outside to beat us off the line. Now, that might be the one thing that you look at the Bronco game and you say, oh, so if you press the Cowboys receivers, they can't separate, and that's a good game plan because, yes, it's 2 out of the last 3 weeks, that has been the case. You've got press corners, you've got tall, long Cowboy receivers, and Amari Cooper is your best guy off the line. You don't really always want to press Amari Cooper. But what happened? Early first play, you press Gallup and you don't hit the play. Mm-hmm. You didn't do anything to get them out of that press coverage. They figured it out. And once Lamb went out, it's like, no, Brown, you're not going to get off the line. Wilson, no, you're not going to get off the line. So then it became even more of a struggle. But I think the Cowboys missed an opportunity because, to me, I try and play aggressive. If I know a crew is not going to call defensive holding, I'm going to get up on you and I'm going to bang, 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 and I'm going to try and just disrupt routes. And I think the Kansas City Chiefs realized that, you know what? These officials aren't going to call it that way. Let's bang these guys. Let's hold these guys. Let's bang them downfield. There were a couple of times for Michael Gallup, a ball going down the field, and Troy Aikman and Joe Buck are like, whoa, that looks like defensive holding or pass interference. Well, if it's not called, it's not.
Right.
So, I think the Kansas City Chiefs took advantage of the officials, and I think the Dallas Cowboys missed an opportunity, at least early in that game, to maybe set the tone with hey, let's get up on these guys and bang them around too.
So I'm interested in this question and your perspective on this, because obviously teams around the NFL have a lot of respect for the Chiefs and their offense with Kelsey and Hill, and obviously with Mahomes and their skill players. Did the Cowboys have too much respect for these playmakers for the Chiefs?
You're getting pressure. You're getting pressure on this guy. And if you could have just early in this game, if you could have just, like I said, you're playing off and you're letting them run underneath, and you're terrified of their speed. To me, maybe I'm just wrong about this, but I've seen enough football in my life that the great equalizer is if you can make receivers have to stop and start again, that throws timing off, and you were getting rush home. You were getting guys around Mahomes. You were making him have to move around in the pocket. He missed some throws, but look at the easy throws he had with cushion, with Brown. And Brown can run. Brown is quick. Why is Brown playing 9 yards off Tyreek Hill? Why? Why, Why are they letting Kelsey run up the field with nobody around him? I mean, they had some busts that were some big plays, but man, they had good enough pressure on Mahomes that they could have affected some of his throws, and they just didn't. In the secondary, it was like they were this off coverage stuff, and it was just why? Why do that? If if you're scared of their speed, I understand. That's a big part of their game. But make them have to stop, and start again. You might get Micah Parsons home on a rush. You might have gotten Armstrong home on a rush. I thought that part of the early part of the game plan I thought was probably not good enough for the Cowboys.
This is a game where you miss Amari Cooper, and specifically where you miss Amari Cooper is his ability to make his teammates better. Folks will say, well, CeeDee Lamb was there. He could have made some plays. Obviously, he went down late in the first half and missed the second half due to concussion. But you could tell early on, and you talked about this on Friday, they're going to double CeeDee Lamb and try to make these other receivers beat you. Yeah. That is where you miss Amari Cooper and his ability, not with just his route running and his toughness and what you see from him, but he commands the kind of attention that frees up a CeeDee Lamb, that frees up a Michael Gallup, a Cedric Wilson for these guys to make plays. It's akin to how Antonio Brown made Juju Smith-Schuster that much better in Pittsburgh. Antonio Brown commanded so much attention that you couldn't help but have Juju Smith-Schuster running wide open all the time because of the amount of attention, that Antonio Brown was commanding. Same thing with Amari Cooper. That's the reason why I feel like he's a number one wide receiver in this league, because of, the attention that he commands. But when you think about offensively, the approach that the Cowboys took, they had several manageable third downs in this game that they could have converted. What did you like or didn't like from a game plan or a play calling standpoint that maybe did or did not put this Cowboys team in a better position, given what they were dealing with in terms of their injuries and trying to utilize some of that depth that they had to utilize on Sunday?
The one thing that they got working was that Dalton Schultz, and we need to see, okay, was it against the Honey Badger? Was it against Thornhill? They got separation with their tight end. Okay, I like the fact that they were able to make some plays that way. What I didn't like was I didn't like the way they ran the football. And I keep saying this because I watched this tape and I watched teams. I watched Tennessee, who is a physical, and maybe that's what my hope was with Tyron Smith and McGovern. They were going to be able to run this football and get some balance out of this thing. I didn't like the fact that their running game consisted of going straight ahead. I mean, just maybe off the guard. You've got to make Kansas City move. I told you that 31-yard run was what happened. It was a reverse that got everybody going one way, and then the ball comes back the other. That's the way, to me, they could have run the football. They have an aggressive front. They want to get over there. They're worried about playing the run. Hell, they almost give up 5 yards a shot defending the run. So they're anxious to get over there and get bodies in that. So I didn't like the fact of just, let's take this thing straight ahead. That didn't bode very well for me. They tried a couple of the screen package stuff they're usually pretty good at. Kansas City tackled really well in this football.
They did.
All of a sudden it's like, okay, it's a screen, blockers in front. Oh, looks big. Boom. Somebody misses a block. Dalton Schultz, they throw that smoke screen out there to Gallup for -3. What does Schultz do? He misses a block. I mean, that's the kind of stuff when you game plan for things like that, or you have a screen and you get it looks like it's going to gain 12 yards and it gains 4 because you don't get a guy. The plan I thought it was frustrating on the running aspect of it.
Sure.
And I needed to figure out something to separate. I needed something to figure out to separate the receivers. I needed more bunch formations, scatter, make it. They're going to play man coverage. Don't let them get out there and just one-on-one me all day. Get in some bunch formations, scatter the formations, make guys have to run into each other, use some picks, whatever you have to do, get guys coming down inside, run behind the wheel route, throw the ball to the top. There were no man busters in this game, I didn't feel like. There was nothing that shook a Cowboy receiver loose, except the very first play of the game when he overthrew. And the corner fell down. But there was nothing game plan-wise that was that bunch formation, scatter, guys running into each other. Oh, wait, look, wide open guy, throw him the ball. I didn't see that in this game, and I think that was a disappointment. They let Kansas City dictate how they were going to play defense to them, and it at the end of the day, they laid a big egg on that one.
Speaking of defense, that's what we'll turn our attention to now. Micah Parsons, another 2 sacks yesterday. Got home several times. I had tweeted during the game. I said, he had missed on one play getting to Mahomes. I said, look, Parsons is going to get home here real soon. And it wasn't maybe 5-10 minutes later, he gets the strip sack on Patrick Mahomes. And I thought that was going to be one of those quote unquote momentum changing type of plays. You were able to get the strip sack and you're hoping that the Cowboys are able to convert, the turnover. Unfortunately, the Cowboys in this game only converted 6 points off of the 2 turnovers that they had. For Micah Parsons, and a lot of the conversation, and I'm sure you heard this during postgame, hey, it's time to make Micah Parsons a full-time, pass rusher, a D, and let him get after the quarterback. Do you like the way that the Cowboys have used him throughout the season, whether it be against Minnesota, where he primarily played linebacker and had a really good game there, or in a game like this where you're missing your 2 top edge rushers, he was able to get a lot of pressure on the quarterback? Do you like the way that the Cowboys are utilizing his versatility, or is it there something to, hey, maybe we do need to consider moving him to a full-time DN position?
I you know what, you mentioned a radio show that we do every day. Jeff Kavanaugh was just an advocate for, he's got to play full-time defensive end. And I'm like, no, put him in the middle where he can be closer to the ball and he can attack. But you know what he's doing? Micah Parsons is developing pass rush techniques, and I was worried about Micah Parsons just running up the field. But you watch Micah Parsons now, he's getting better at understanding how to knock hands away, how to get his shoulder underneath, where to attack, where the quarterback is in the pocket, working back underneath, spin move, stuff like that. I think that as long as Tank's out and you'll probably get Tank back, my guess would be for the Giants game. I think it's going to be you're going to miss this Raiders game and you're likely going to miss the Saints game. And then I think you'll have Tank back. You'll have Randy back before that. But they're doing a great job of he is the best rusher you have. And if that's what you have to do to get pressure, that's what you have to do to get pressure. I can't argue with Jeff anymore about it on our show about, no, put him at linebacker and let him attack and let him do, because he has a feel for how to rush the passer. He really, really does. And, I think you have to do what you have to do until you get Randy back. And like I say, you're gonna miss Randy likely this game against the Raiders, and then we'll see what happens with the Saints. But my gut feeling is he'll probably be back for that game right now, and then then you could have Micah and Randy rushing against Trevor Siemian in that Thursday night game.
I tweeted out during the game, I said, look, Cowboys fans, you got your TJ Watt now. Yeah. Micah Parsons played that well and continues to play that well. Yeah. And it's showing. Look, to me, I know he's got Defensive Rookie of the Year locked up. That's no question. To me, as the season goes on, especially if he continues to play well, maybe we need to start having the conversation about him being Defensive Player of the Year. To me, that's how good he's been. We'll see if he can keep it up as the rest of the season goes on. Obviously, a short week for the Dallas Cowboys going into Thanksgiving on Thursday. Some injuries coming out of this game. Obviously, the most notable one was CeeDee Lamb with the concussion. He may not be available going into Thursday because that concussion protocol. To try and get that done in a 3-day span to get ready for Thursday, I don't see that necessarily happening on, by the time you get to Thursday. So let's just assume at this point, you're already going to miss Amari Cooper, obviously. CeeDee Lamb most likely going to be out on Thursday. How does this team, as you start to look forward now, how does this team, from an offensive standpoint, as we look at them taking on the Raiders, say, okay, we're going to be down our two pass catchers. How do we generate offense to be able to get back on track against Las Vegas, knowing Vegas is coming off 2 disappointing losses back-to-back at home to Kansas City and Cincinnati? They're going to be looking to try to get a win themselves. How did the Cowboys, based on what you saw on Sunday, bounce back and try to get some things done offensively as you start previewing early in the week what this Cowboys offense needs to do?
Yeah, I think what you're going to see more is actually, Gallup had 10 targets yesterday. He had 5 catches. That's going to have to be consistent there. You're going to have to, instead of okay, 10 targets, you're going to need 7 catches. You're going to need 8 catches there. I think with Cedric Wilson, he had 7 targets. He had 4 catches. Cedric Wilson with 7 or 8 targets, 9 targets. You're going to need 6, 7 catches there. You can't be 7 catches or 7 targets and 4 catches. You just can't do that. Or 5 and 10. You can't be 50% on that. I will say this. I honestly, Noah Brown struggled. I worried a little bit about Noah Brown. He can make plays. He's capable of making plays. He struggled yesterday badly in that game. I wonder now if you're going to see more Malik Turner in this football games, going forward. Malik Turner, every time he's been in a game, he's had a reception. He's had a couple of touchdowns. He had 2 targets yesterday. He had 1 reception for 11 yards. Maybe it's time to get Malik Turner more involved in this because if you're not going to be able to, if Brown is going to be inconsistent, I think maybe even have to think about getting Tony Pollard involved some way. They're going to have to come up and generate some offense, without Amari, without CeeDee in this game. It's going to come down to, and the one thing that the Raiders can do from just watching them on TV games, they rush the passer. Mm-hmm. So you got to hope that Tyron Smith's back in here and you get a little bit more stability, across that offensive line. But I think that's the thing. I mean, just having Tyron Smith back there would probably help the offense. Be interested to see, like I say, I think it's the passing game. The targets are going to be for Wilson, for Gallup. They've got to be. It can't be, like I was saying, it can't be 10 targets, 5 catches. It's got to be 10 targets, 8 catches. You just can't miss plays. And I've kind of felt like they missed some plays yesterday, but we'll see. I guarantee you the Raiders. The Raiders will come in here and they'll play that cover 3 look and all that stuff like that, and they'll dare you to, they'll probably play some man coverage, and you'd be smart. If you're the Raiders, you'll be smart to play man coverage against the Cowboys until they prove that they can actually separate and try and make some plays.
Last thing, I'll get you out of here on this real quick. The Cowboys now 7-3 on the season. Right now, if the playoffs were to start today, they would be the 3 seed. They could be the 4 seed by the time today's over with the Tampa Bay Buccaneers playing the Giants. Dak Prescott and this team overall, how are you feeling based on their performance as far as their contender status is concerned, if that's something that, folks would be interested in? Do you feel better or worse about this team given what happened on Sunday and now looking forward to them playing against the Raiders and the Saints, knowing how tight this NFC is starting to become at this point?
Tell you what, I actually, it's crazy to say this, I feel better. I do feel better. I don't look at a loss to Kansas City as a bad loss. That's not like Buffalo losing at Jacksonville. That's not like Tennessee losing to Houston. This is a loss against a team it's been in the Super Bowl the last 2 years, a lot of the same players. You saw, you would think that Mahomes and Hill and those guys and Kelsey would kill you. Yeah, it was another one of their players that killed you. It was Chris Jones that killed you. So I'll tell you why I feel better. I feel better because the Cowboys defense showed up in this game. And against Denver, it didn't show up. It got beat up, it got pushed around, it gave up huge plays. In this game, they could have given up huge plays. They could have folded. If Kansas City was on, if Kansas City's offense was really, really rolling and Dallas really didn't have an answer, this could have been a 48-9 game. As many times as Dallas went out 3 and outs and turnovers and stuff like that. I feel good because this is a game I think the Cowboys defense, even though in defeat, I felt like it grew a little bit. It grew a little bit. Not initially. It was tough because I don't think they were nearly aggressive enough.
Sure.
But they have to feel proud that they held Kansas City in check to at least give their offense a chance. The offense spit the bit in this one. They weren't good enough blocking. They weren't good enough throwing. They weren't good enough catching, and they weren't good enough running. That was the reason why you lost this football game. It wasn't because of the defense just imploding. And I think that as a Cowboy fan, you should feel good about that. Your defense might be legitimate with Dan Quinn and these guys playing.
Coming into this game, they were only allowing 21 points per game, which is good for 10th in the NFL. They held the Chiefs to less than that. So lowering their scoring average again after this game, even in defeat. We will see how the Cowboys respond and bounce back as they get ready to take on the Las Vegas Raiders for their traditional Thanksgiving Day game at AT&T Stadium. The Cowboys on a short week. We will be back on Wednesday for our Wednesday show here on the Boys Collective to get you that game preview going into Thursday as the Cowboys look to try and bounce back after their loss on the road to the Kansas City Chiefs 19-9. Bright spot, defense was really good in this game. Low light, offense not great, not being able to step up to really pick up that defense who really kept them in the game on Sunday against the Chiefs. But we'll see how they bounce back and get more, especially with CeeDee Lamb's status heading into the game on Thursday. For the Super Bowl winning scout, Bryan Broaddus, 1/4 of the G-Bag Nation. My name is Kevin Gray. This has been the Boys Collective episode number 19. Again, you can subscribe to us on 105 Through the Fan here on YouTube, Twitter, Facebook, and Instagram at 105 Through the Fan, and also on 105throughthefan.com. Bryan, again, thank you for the time. As always, looking forward to talk to you on Wednesday, sir.
Sounds great, KG. Take care.
Thank you.